Hello, I'm Nigel from Book2Pod. Coming up in this bloody good episode of the Big Gay Fiction Podcast, Jeff and Will talk to author Poppy Dennison about her new Bartlett Boys series. They review books, and, oh yeah, they talk about me too.
Welcome to the Big Gay Fiction Podcast, the show for readers and writers of gay romance fiction. If you can read it, write it, watch it, or listen to it, these two guys are going to talk about it. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Adams and Will Knaus.
Welcome to episode 125 of Jeff and Will's Big Gay Fiction Podcast. I'm Jeff from JeffAdamsWrites.com.
And as always, I'm Will from WillKnaus.com. This week's episode is brought to you in part by listeners just like you. We will have more information on how you can help support this show in just a few moments.
Absolutely.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. We hope you all had a splendiferous reading week. Got lots of great books read. We have had an okay week. As our British friends might say, our weekend has gone tits up. It has not gone well. But before we get to that, you got some editing done on yet another book. Do you want to talk about that first?
Well, speaking of British...
Oh, that is true.
We should thank our guest intro reader, who was Nigel, the British narrator from Book2Pod.
We will talk about Nigel and his service in another moment.
Yes. So yes, there was editing this week. I had edits for Winger 3 come back from my senior editor over at Harmony Inc. And so I was working through those all week long. The book's in a good spot.
Good. That's good to hear.
Yeah. As I got to reread it for the first time in about a month, it's like, oh yeah, this isn't too bad. So I'm back to the I like this book phase.
Well, that's a good phase to be in.
And I traveled to the Bay Area this weekend, or not this weekend, but this week for a couple days of work, which was what it was. And we're progressing ever closer to the move as this podcast drops. We will be 2 weeks out from the truck showing up at our door to haul our stuff. So, getting close. Lots of planning going on, lots of stuff going on, and it's exciting. I'm still in the excited mode for the move. I haven't gotten to the holy crap, what's going on move.
Exactly.
Do you want to talk about our tits up weekend?
No, not particularly. Our car hates us and technology hates us. That's all that we need to say.
Indeed. I think mostly it hates me.
It really hates you.
Right down to the fact that this morning, the TiVo rebooted itself on me. It's like, what the hell? But yeah, working through that. We do want to give a very happy birthday to our friends B and Leah down at the Ripped Bodice. They will celebrate their second anniversary this coming Sunday, March 4th. Happy birthday, happy anniversary, and thanks for running such an awesome bookstore. Book2Pod.
Yes, last week we talked about the new service for authors, book2pod.com, and we included a sample reading of one of Jeff's stories and asked for your opinions.
And we did get a couple of opinions. We heard from Nancy, who is a longtime listener. Hi, Nancy. She said the Book2Pod reminded her of the way the original Kindles would read books, which it very much is, although Amazon Polly, I think, is leaps and bounds ahead of where the original Kindles were some 10 years ago when they were reading books. While she says she would, quote, pick up the audiobook every time, she did note that she could easily see Book2Pod as a marketing tool and a way to attract a different audience. We also heard from Ron, who also loves his audiobooks, but did view it as, quote, a wonderful marketing tool for authors, and he really likes the podcast aspect of it. He wasn't sure he could listen to a whole book in like a road trip coming from Polly, necessarily, but he could see splitting it up chapters or scenes in a podcast and take in little bits of it over time. Very, very definitely. I think those are all quite appropriate comments. And I don't think Book2Pod sees itself as replacing audiobooks in any way. I think they do see it as this way to outreach, to find a new and different audience for books. And its cost, which if you go for the full service, which includes like the podcast hosting and everything else, you're only paying $1,000, no matter the length of the book. And it's nearly impossible to get.
It is impossible.
Audiobook. Well, unless it's a really short book.
Teeny tiny short book. Yeah.
Because Flipping for Him got done for about $900, but it's also only it comes in right around 3 hours. So anything over about the length of that book, which is about 30,000 words, I think, if I remember correctly, you are going to get well above $1,000 to produce your audiobooks. And this takes it, slices it up into some episodes, and gives you kind of a marketing tool for people to sample your work in a different way than, say, giving away the free book via email used to be. Your thoughts, sir?
I agree with you 100%. This is not meant to replace an audiobook. It is a marketing tool. Since you're not going to be let me start again. Book2Pod is meant as a different way to market your book and reach other readers or listeners through the podcasting format. It is not meant in any way, shape, or form to replace an audio book, at least not yet. I think they will constantly be iterating and optimizing the service, and I'm sure it'll grow over the coming months and years.
As will Amazon Polly. Amazon Polly will get better at what it does to produce this kind of AI-read book.
Mm-hmm. The main criticism I would have is that I do not mind the computerized style of the voice. I think that's perfectly acceptable. I think where you might run into problems is with the material that you are adapting using that voice technology. For instance, in your sample from your book, Flipping for Him. No, wait.
Dancing for Him.
I'm sorry. In the sample that you fed into the system for Dancing for Him, you specifically chose a piece, essentially a paragraph, that had some narrative voice and had some dialogue and a couple of different things going on to kind of test out how the voice sounded. I, as a listener, was a tiny bit confused because your two main characters were speaking to one another, and in that short paragraph, there weren't necessarily dialogue tags. Mm-hmm. Which is a problem when you have a computerized voice who is just reading and not performing your book. Now, a narrator is, of course, going to do a good job and differentiate between the different characters. Mm-hmm. The computer voice can't do that. So,
not yet.
Well, that's very true. At least not yet. So, I was a little bit confused by your sample because I wasn't always 100% sure which character was talking. So I think that is a problem emblematic of the technology. It's also not necessarily a problem, but you didn't have in that specific example, like, John said, James said. Yeah. That would be a clear signifier for whoever is listening.
But I think you would also, as a listener, get tired if everything was tagged.
Well, that's very, very true. That's where the artistry of writing comes in. That's where the art and craft of writing. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And the art and craft of being an audiobook narrator.
100% agree.
But again, it is an interesting way to get the book out there, because if somebody started listening to the book through Book2Pod, they may want to go pick it up and read it. Mm-hmm. Or if there's an audiobook version of it, go pick that up. Or simply get into the new author themselves. So it's very exciting to see this out there, and look forward to seeing not only how Book2Pod grows, but how Amazon Polly evolves as well, mm-hmm. with new voices and new ways that it reads. Because we know what you didn't hear in the opening that we had, because you have to give a title and who it's by. It doesn't always say the same words the same way twice, because with Will's name, when it was by Jeff and Will, it said Will in a slightly different way than it did when it was inside the intro itself that you did hear. So there are some variations on the voice already. So anyway, yeah, Book2Pod. If you're an author, check them out at book2pod.com. And if you're a reader, keep an eye out for future Book2Pod podcasts.
Okay, now is the time of the show where we like to thank our newest patrons. Liz, thank you for joining the Patreon family. Now, you can help support the Big Gay Fiction Podcast with a monthly pledge through Patreon. For as little as 25 cents an episode, your pledge helps pay for the cost of producing and distributing this show. And for fans who pledge at the silver and gold levels, you'll have the exclusive opportunity to ask questions of our upcoming guests. Also, all patrons have the option to have a personalized thank you sent directly to them. Also, every month that we meet our production goals, we will produce a special bonus episode, especially for our patrons. Now, if you are interested in finding out more, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/Big Gay Fiction Podcast. I forgot the name of our show for a second. That's patreon.com/Big Gay Fiction Podcast. In The Hockey Player's Heart, the feel-good gay romance by Jeff Adams and Will Knaus, hockey star Caleb Carter returns to his hometown to recover from an injury. He never expects to run into his one-time crush at a grade school fundraiser. Seeing Aaron Price hits him hard, like being checked into the boards. The attraction is still there, even after all these years, and Caleb decides to make a play for the school teacher. You miss 100% of the shots you never take, right? Aaron has been burned by love before, and can't imagine what a celebrity like Caleb could possibly see in a guy like him. Their differences are just too great. But as Aaron spends more time with Caleb, he begins to wonder if he might have what it takes to win the hockey player's heart. Get The Hockey Player's Heart at dreamspinnerpress.com, Amazon.com, and other online book retailers.
I think we should review some books. What do you think?
Indubitably. That's a splendid idea.
Now, if you'd said that British, you could have been Nigel there for a second. So I'll kick us off with The Sumage Solution, which is the first book in the San Andreas Shifter series by G.L. Carriger, also known, of course, as Gail Carriger. And I did the audiobook of this, which was narrated by Kirt Graves. In this book, we get to meet Max, who is a Sumage, and his job in life is to clean up other mages' messes. And that's a nice alliteration there.
Those messy mages.
Indeed. Because you never know when somebody's going to be throwing off some magic somewhere that they shouldn't be throwing. He's also got some significant issues around his father, who was a not nice parent in any shape, form, or fashion. He didn't care for the fact that Max was gay, didn't care for the fact that he turned into a Sumage, didn't like any of it, and he was a bit of a dick about it. On the other side of that is Brian, who is a werewolf, who has recently moved to the Bay Area with his pack. Brian serves as beta to this pack, and his brother is the alpha. And you have a whole bunch of neat, kind of fun pack mates here who I look forward to reading about in future installments of this series as well. So these two meet when Brian shows up in Max's office so that he can register the pack and arrange for them to live in Sausalito without any troubles, because they also happen to have a merman in their crew who is mated to his brother.
You just said the sentence, he has a merman in his crew. I'm sorry, when did you ever think that you would ever say that sentence in your life?
Well, that's a good point.
I mean, that's a pretty badass sentence, but I was struck by the humor.
It was kind of funny, right?
Please continue with your review.
Now that you totally thrown me off.
I want, if we're going to have a pack, I want a merman and a werewolf and, I don't know.
A unicorn.
A unicorn shifter, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Those are a good place to start.
That covers a lot of bases.
It does.
Okay, continue.
Anyway, so these two get together when Brian shows up to register the pack, and Brian's instantly into how Max smells because he doesn't have the smell of a mage, and because werewolves and mages aren't supposed to necessarily mix together. And these two cannot get enough of each other. As much as they try to fight against it for a while, they keep getting thrown together, and I have to say, it's so adorable. This book, in ways I never expected, kind of melted my heart a lot because of how adorable and awesome these two characters are together. And even when they're being prickly and not quite coming together, you get that there's that pull that just keeps wanting to bring them, to be in one spot together. And of course, Brian, as a beta, kind of wants to help everybody. So he puts a lot of himself, he puts Max ahead of a lot of things for a while, trying to bring them together. There is also things going on with Max's father, who is dead and who he scattered across the sea is in ashes, so he could never come back as a ghost. But there's a house that is left that Max has been totally buttoned up. Max can't get into it. Nobody can get into it until one day when he and Brian find out how to get into it. There are secrets in this house. There's an evil judge who wants those secrets and is coming after Max to get them. And it all turns, it all blends up in one awesome mashup towards the end where the pack is helping Max against the mage. And I loved it. I don't know what's gotten into me that I'm so into paranormal lately. But I think it started with T.J. Klune and Wolfsong and has just gone from there. Mm-hmm. Where I find books like this that are like, that's kind of a cool plot set in the modern time. So it's not in some. I mean, this is clearly alternate universe, but it's now, as in San Francisco. So it appealed to me a lot. Kirt Graves did a great job with the narration. No big surprise there. And my favorite scene in the entire book is when Brian has to take Max home to meet not only his brother, but the rest of the pack. That's just, it's a little bit funny and a little bit nervous and a little bit kind of awesome. So, The Sumage Solution, San Andreas Shifters #1 by C.L. Carriger. Check it out. Fun read. Very enjoyable.
Cool.
Yeah.
Also, this past week, we both read The Fireman's Pole by Sue Brown.
Possibly one of the most provocative Dreams of Undesire titles ever.
Yeah, this is a super enjoyable book, set in a quaint little village in England. It's about Dale. He makes the move from the big city to, as I mentioned, a small English village. He has joined the local fire department. And on his very first day, he helps save a local matron, and that ingratiates him to the other members of the village. But also, that same day, he actually knocks over the village maypole, which pisses off the local lord, a guy named Ben. There was some history behind this maypole, and he's very, very mad that it got knocked over. So there's a bit of love-hate going on immediately between these two characters. Mm-hmm. They both they get off on the wrong foot, but are immediately attracted to one another. Ben, shortly after meeting Dale, breaks things off with his longtime girlfriend. It was assumed that he was eventually going to get engaged to this woman and marry her and sire an heir and all of that sort of like lords and ladies stuff that I obviously do not watch enough Downton Abbey to understand anything about the whole English hierarchical. None of it makes any sense to me. So authors, any English stuff, I just take your word for it. Anyway,
yes.
So what was really nice about this book is not only the two main characters who had great chemistry together, as there is a very large secondary cast, and I thought one of the best ones was Ben's essentially ex-fiancée. I think when we first meet her, we kind of naturally assume, since she's going to be the ex, that she's going to end up being the evil ex and cause problems for our two heroes. But that is not the case. She is very kind, incredibly smart, and she actually ends up helping Ben when her dick of a father tries to push through a business deal with Ben and the estate. A whole bunch of stuff goes down with that. Anyway,
we have fathers who are dicks in all of the books this week.
It's a theme. So in addition to all of the problems Ben is having on the business side of things, and whether he really wants to live as an openly gay man, there is also an arsonist who has been starting fires all over this small English village, and they have to find out who's doing it and why. I really enjoyed the Fireman's Pull an awful lot. This is one of the first books. It's the first book I've read by Sue Brown, and I enjoyed it immensely.
I did as well. I did the audiobook, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I really, as you did, loved Ben and Dale's chemistry.
Yep.
Every time they were together, I was just like, stop putting up barricades and just be together. Just do it. It's fine. I liked the side kind of angsty stuff with the arsonist and the business dealings, because her father is a dick. And I liked how the village was such a character here. There, as you mentioned, a large supporting cast of the villagers and Ben's staff and the firehouse folks that Dale's with. And they all play a wonderful part in this story. It reminded me a lot of some of the Hallmark things that we've seen, where you have all the townspeople kind of in everybody's business in some of those small town movies. Finn Sterling did a great job with the narration, especially having such a large cast to keep track of and keep their voices differentiated. He did awesome. We also learned this past week that it's Finn who's actually doing the audiobook for our Hockey Player's Heart, which comes out later this spring. So I'm super psyched to hear what he does with our book, now having heard what he did with this one. So yeah, The Fireman's Pull by Sue Brown. Go get it.
This past weekend, before this crappy weekend, we went. Actually, no, we went and saw it on
President's Day.
On President's Day, we went to the cinema, and like the rest of the free world, we went and saw Black Panther.
Oh my God, it was awesome.
God, it's so damn good. That's all we need to say. You don't need us to tell you it's awesome. I'm sure you've all seen it. It's pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, I loved it. I think it's certainly among my favorite Marvel movies, favorite any superhero movie. It had so many just perfect notes. So thumbs up, Marvel.
Yeah,
Black Panther. If you're one of the few potentially at this point who has not seen it, go check it out. It's worth seeing it in theaters too, because it's nice up on the big screen.
Yeah, I loved it so much that while you were away on business, I spent an evening Netflix and chilling all by myself, and I watched Captain America: Civil War. That is, of course, it essentially serves as the origin story for T'Challa and the new Peter Parker. Incidentally, I think Civil War is far and away my favorite non-Avengers movie.
Right.
I think that movie is superior in all aspects. It has a ginormous cast, but it manages to give them each of the superhero characters a distinct moment, a specific emotional beat to play, and I think it really works in the story of Black Panther and the new Spider-Man exceptionally well, and I enjoy that movie an awful lot.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Infinity War now to see where it all builds up to next, which I think is this summer sometime.
Hopefully it'll be good.
Yeah.
Want to hang out with us between shows? Check us out on Facebook. You never know what we might post. News about book sales, bonus video content, and maybe even a live broadcast or two. Like us today at facebook.com/biggayfictionpodcast and see what we get up to next.
So this past week, we got to connect with a longtime friend of the podcast, Poppy Dennison. She is out there. She has been a busy girl since she left her marketing position at Dreamspinner. She's got the new Bartlett Boys series out, which started in January. She's in the Heart to Heart anthology. She's got a new series, well, kind of a relaunch of a series called Coconut Grove that she writes with MJ O'Shea. She's got a ton of stuff to tell us about. So shall we get to that interview?
Yes, let's.
So it is always a pleasure to welcome Poppy Dennison to the podcast. Hello, Poppy.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, good. You have had a very busy start of the year. And I think
Yes,
we should start off hearing all about your Bartlett Boys series that kicked off in January. Who are these
absolutely.
guys?
These guys are actually based on my family, sort of. So they're not based off of like individual family members. But one of the things that I found that people are really curious about is when we do Thanksgiving in my family, it's for 50 people. So we cook for 50 people every Thanksgiving. I'm one of 12 cousins, and normally about 9 out of the 12 of us are usually at Thanksgiving with all of their kids. So there's 18 great grands. So my cousins, between all of them, there's 18 children of theirs. It's huge. It's massive. But people are always like, wait, now what? You have how many family members and you speak to them? So I decided I wanted to write a book that sort of captured that huge family environment, that just everybody's in your business. Everybody knows what you're up to. My mama is calling my aunties and she's telling them what's going on. And then they're going to call me and they're going to let me know what they think about what's going on. And yeah, it's just fun. But it's all full of love. I mean, that's the thing. Like I've never not had that, so I didn't know that it was unusual. So I just wanted to try to capture that in the book. So this is 4 of the 12 cousins, these books, and they're all in for a world of meddling with their loving family as they meet their loves and sort of find their happily ever after. So it's fun, and it's a romp, and lots of family, lots of cousins, lots of aunts and uncles, and it's fun.
How much of it then is autobiographical?
Not as much as you think. What I did was I sat down with a calendar and all of my cousins' birthdays. And so each of the Bartlett cousins has the same birthday as one of my cousins. But other than that, that's really the only part of it that's even at all remotely similar. All of my cousins are... You might be surprised to know that we all have pretty strong personalities. So it would really, I'm not sure how that would work. But yeah, it was too much fun to try to capture. I did capture my brother and one of my cousins were born 2 weeks apart. And so they've always had like a really special relationship because they're basically, I mean, they're almost twins, right? I mean, they grew up together at 2 weeks apart. So all of that. So little details like that snuck in that I thought was just sort of fun little, like what happens when you do have a cousin that lives, 5 minutes away from you, that you were born 2 weeks apart, and your parents get together every weekend to play cards and dominoes, and, because that's what we did growing up. My mom's and her brothers and sisters are her best friends. So, that little details like that are autobiographical, but the rest of it, I mean, nobody would believe me if I tried to capture my cousins' true personalities.
Now,
They
Poppy,
make me look mild.
the first book in the series is Family Ties, and that came out in January.
Yes.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, is this your very first independently published book?
That's kind of a trick question.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Sort of. I don't know if you guys remember, I have 2 paranormal titles that were with Wild City Press.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And so I re-released those titles. I self-published them as a re-release, but this is my first title that I that's gone straight out as a self-published title. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yes.
Yes and no.
Tell us about what goes on in Family Ties specifically. Who are the first Bartlett boys that we get to meet?
So the first Bartlett boy is Blake Bartlett, and Blake is actually coming back home. The town is called Havendale, and since it's set here in Florida, where I grew up, I actually grew up in 2 different places. Some of you guys might remember that I grew up in a small town in Tennessee, in East Tennessee, which is where Holly Creek is based. My Holly Creek books. Before that, my mom's entire family lived in a small town in Central Florida. So I based Havendale on that town where we all grew up. So Blake is coming back home. He was out in Seattle, and he and his husband adopted or had a surrogate and had a daughter. And then he sort of neglected to tell the family that he and his husband split up. He kind of just sort of pushed everybody away and kept it a secret. And unfortunately, his almost ex-husband was killed in a car accident. And so he kind of had no choice but to be honest and tell the family. And so he's kind of coming home under that cloud of pushing the family away. And he was embarrassed because he had pretended that his life was perfect, and it wasn't. But he's coming back home and sort of reestablishing his roots as one of the Bartletts. And it's a lot of fun because the cousins give him a hard time, like we deserve the truth kind of thing, but then once they've sort of forgiven him, which I think is the way it works in a lot of families, it's like, I'm mad at you, but I've forgiven you, and now it's back to just giving you hell about everything that I want to, so it's sort of along those lines. And then he meets Link, who is the construction worker who works for his family's construction business. So needless to say, sparks fly.
Now, with the Bartlett books, and we talked a little bit about this back at GRL,
Yeah.
You've named them all after 80s sitcoms.
I did, yes.
So there's Family Ties now. There's Growing Pains coming out in March that we'll talk a little bit about in a few minutes. What are the other titles you have picked that you can share?
I'm happy to share Perfect Strangers and Facts of Life. So it's Family Ties, Growing Pains, Perfect Strangers, and Facts of Life. And I also, in the Heart to Heart charity anthology, I wrote a short story in the Bartlett world that is in the book. I had to call it based on the Heart to Heart titling methodology. It's called the Event Planner and the Electrician.
Mm-hmm.
When I get the rights back to that and release it, that will be Who's the Boss. So you heard it here first. Nobody else actually knows that, but that one will be. It's not one of the cousins. It's somebody who, it's two people who work with the cousins. So it's sort of a side world there.
How fun was it to come up with these titles, and how many did you actually have written down to come up with these 5?
So many. I mean, I really went through and I just looked it up and like, you guys know Charlie Cochet. She's a very good friend of mine. We sat down and looked, and my roommate, everyone we could come up with, and we just laughed because it's like, and some of them, like Alf, like how can you name something Alf, right? You can't. But, so it's like there's some of those things that we were just sort of like having a good time and kind of laughing and saying, how could you do that? Cheers, like there's some things that you kind of can't parse into actually a story. But I felt like with all of those titles, Growing Pains, it really is an expression. So it's Facts of Life, Perfect Strangers, like all of those things were more universal than just the title of the sitcom. So, but I actually chose Growing Pains first. And I was like, I love that idea that, that there's so many things that you can think about with Growing Pains. And there's so much meaning to that, especially in a romance. And then actually Family Ties ended up being the first story, but yeah, it's fun. And I want to come up with more now just so that I can. I haven't yet. So far these are the only ones, but I definitely think there's hope for more if the readers want.
Very cool. So Growing Pains comes out in March.
Yes.
What's coming for the next Bartlett cousin there?
This one I'm trying my hand at sort of a romantic suspense. But it is in a way, there's a little like mystery involved, but it's poppy style mystery. So no worries, that Cale is one of the younger cousins, and he is a YouTube celebrity chef. YouTube is my social media of choice. I know a lot of people spend a lot of time on Facebook and things. You will rarely find me on social media, but I love watching YouTube videos, I think. And I don't watch a lot of the things that are the sort of like, oh, this guy's dressed up in it like a T-Rex and is chasing people or what, like that sort of stuff. But there's things like his name, Turtles All the Way Down, John Green. He and his brother do some really amazing things on YouTube, and it's all educational. Their Vlog Brothers channel is wonderful, and I love it. And so I started watching. I will watch anything. I mean, there's a channel called Today I Found Out, and it's just random facts and trivia. Super fun, and like, you know, there's things like, oh, you know, I can't even think of what they are. They're all just really weird and quirky and interesting things, you know. So I watched stuff like that, and then I started watching cooking videos. And the folks who do this are so neat, and they have the neatest personalities. The one gal that I actually based Kale on, she's just such a cute like lady, and her personality is just like, I'm like, man, I want to be her friend, you know. So she just got a deal with the Food Network. So like she just put it out like a week ago, and I was like, oh, that's so exciting. Like, I'm like, I feel like I know her because I've been watching her videos for so long. So Kayla's a YouTube chef, and then he has a little bit of problem with an overzealous fan, and so he meets back up with an old high school nemesis who is now a cop. And so Sean and Kale sort of have a few little problems they have to iron out. So while they're figuring out the nemesis that is his YouTube fan.
So I have to ask,
yeah,
who is this YouTube chef that you found?
Oh, it's the channel that it's The Domestic Geek.
That's a great name.
Yeah, it is. There's another great one called Food Wishes. His chef John, he's really the most amazing things. I watch I'm probably going to say it wrong, Brothers Green Eats. It's a two brothers that they do videos, and there's a gal who does a lot of like really health conscious videos called Mind Over Munch, and she does like a lot of meal planning and really healthy. And then there's a gal called Laura Vitale, and she does Italian recipes and just sort of like really family friendly things. And so I sort of like took a lot of all of those people because I enjoy watching them and I love to cook. And so it was like, how can I sort of capture that energy and enthusiasm that they were providing to me as a viewer into a character? It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That sounds a lot of fun. And you got new recipes out of it too, I assume, as well.
I did. You should see the list of recipes. I actually am trying to figure out how I can do it. I have a list of every recipe that I'm mentioning in the Bartlett series. Some of them are my family recipes. My dad makes this thing called an onion casserole, and everyone is always like, onion casserole. But it is like every time anybody eats it, they're like, dear God, what is this? I want more. It's just the craziest thing. And it's super bad for you. And so you only have it on Thanksgiving because you can, everybody eats bad at Thanksgiving, right? So things like that.
Now, you mentioned briefly the Heart to Heart anthology that came out for Valentine's Day. Completely adorable story with the wedding planner and the electrician. And it was so your style, too. I could just envision this southern set, kind of sassy wedding planner and this more blue-collar electrician. What was it like to write inside this little world that got created for the anthology? And also blend it with your world.
It was easy for the most part because we, I don't know if you know, like they set it up as a Mad Lib. So readers actually submitted different pieces. They sent in characters' names, ages, occupations, and then 3 personality traits. I think there was 3. It's been a minute since I wrote that, but I think there were 3. So we actually had some things character-wise to work on. And then we had this sort of format for the story, which we knew they were going to be sort of opposites attract. So I was so deep into working on the Bartletts at that time that when Leslie's so wonderful that I can't praise her enough. When she asked me if I would participate, I was like, I would have to do it in the Bartlett world because I'm so deep into edits on these books, and they're coming out back to back, and there's 4 of them. And I thought, I don't want to pull myself out of the Bartlett world. So I asked her if it was okay if I created characters that would fit into that universe. And she was like, yes, please do, because she actually had read Family Ties at that point. She had beta read it for me. So it was kind of fun. So it really blended really seamlessly. And I had already had the idea to write. I wanted to do something more with Danielle, who is one of the bossier members of the, and not to give anything away, but she also shares my birthday, conveniently enough. She's a tiny bit bossy. And I just wanted to have fun exploring some of those characters that I knew wouldn't get a lot of page time in the series, just based on how everything had gone as I was writing. So Danielle was one of those that I loved enough to see her do more weddings, which, spoiler alert, you'll see more of Danielle in the fall, but it'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun, and just having those and seeing it all fit together. But yeah, it was easy, and the books are all so good. Like, everybody knocked it out of the park. There's not one of those stories that's not good. They're all so
it's a great collection.
Yeah. Did you see the paperback is up?
I saw that when I was doing show notes for this current week's episode, that the paperback's actually up, yes.
It's like, it's so thick. It's like 2.5 inches thick. It's 150,000 words, I think they said.
Wow.
So, I mean, the print version is like, and then they set it at like the rock bottom price that they could, like, because this isn't for us to make money. We weren't trying to. It was hysterical. So we were all like, wow, we really did something special there, very excited about it. So it's very good to see something like that. And it did so well. I mean, it's still doing well, but we raised a lot of money already for our charities. And so it was an honor to be part of it.
That's really good to hear, because we're only 3 weeks in, I guess, as we're recording this.
Yeah, and I don't watch the numbers. That's not it. But they did let us know a few weeks ago that it had done extremely well, and of course still going. So
now you've got yet another series coming online later this year with Coconut Cove. That was a little harder to say with the alliteration than I anticipated.
It is. Now, Coconut Cove is actually another series that was started at Wild City. But at that point, it didn't seem to hit at a time when people were kind of interested. It was a really odd experience, but it's co-written with MJ O'Shea. So I write book 1, MJ writes book 2. And we loved the idea, but it was sort of like this weird thing where the readers didn't seem to find it. So when we got the rights back, we really thought, should we just not do anything with this? And I shared it with Elizabeth North at Dream Spinner, and I was like, will you take a look at these and let me know, if it's something, because it's 6 books and only 1 and 2 had been released. And she was like, give me these books, give them to me right now. Yes, please. And so it was really exciting. So it was it was a project that I had worked on. I think they came out. I don't remember when they came out. It's been years ago that they came out. So it was really fun to sort of revisit that world and where we were then and where we are now. It's because, at that point, gay marriage, not a thing. And now it is. And so some of those things that we actually had to go back in and really tweak because of things that have changed just in the few short years since we wrote those books. And so 3, 4, 5, and 6 have never been read by readers. They're brand new. And then 1 and 2 are re-releases. So very excited. Life's a Beach is the first one, and it's mine, and it will be out in April 20th, I think.
Nice.
April 20th.
Give us an idea what Coconut Cove is about.
Yeah, Coconut Cove is actually a TV show. And it is set, it's one of the first all gay cast TV shows, and it's set at a high school in Key West. So my story starts with a character named Flynn, who is the actor who is going to play the main character on Coconut Cove. And he arrives on set, and there's been a little bit of a scandal. The actor who was originally cast had a little bit of a problem and had to go to rehab. And so they brought Flynn in as a replacement. And so he shows up to this cast that's already, working, and they already know each other. And so he's sort of the new guy, and he has to sort of find a way to fit in. And then he meets one of the local bartenders who's a very nice looking fellow. And they get to know each other through the course of it. And so Seth has absolutely no interest in fame or being famous. He lives in Key West. He runs this bar. He's perfectly happy. And yet he can't seem to stop thinking about this guy who's now going to be famous. And he's like, I don't want to do this, So it's a really interesting sort of dynamic of them trying to figure out if they can make this work. So.
That sounds kind of fun. I like it.
And so each of the stories is one of the actors. It's the story of the actor who is playing the part on Coconut Cove. So, but they're all set in Key West, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to write.
No doubt, it sounds like it.
Yeah, and MJ fans are going to be thrilled. I mean, MJ is so talented, and she's so fun to work with, and we are so different as writers and creators, but having that opportunity to brainstorm with someone who's really, like, we have a lot in common, but we write completely differently. I mean, I guess everybody does, but there's just something about our process, But this was so fun to sort of figure out, like, how to make that work, and things that are, like, she's known for and is really good at, and things that I'm known for and I'm really good at, and trying to make those meet in the middle. We had a lot of fun with it. I think the readers are really going to like it. I really do. I think that, and both of the first two books are you hit the ground running right there with the cast. So it's a lot of fun.
Was it fun kind of going back and forth between the books for you two as writers and co-writing in that way? So it's co-writing, I guess, in the universe, but not co-writing the book together?
Right. Well, and what we had to do was I wrote my book first, and then I had to send it off to her and wait for her to write hers. And then I got hers back, and then I could write mine because they're set chronologically. So as the season of the show progresses, things are happening to the characters. So it's the first 2 seasons of Coconut Cove occur across 6 books. So we've got season finales to deal with. What happens if a character on the show gets killed off? What happens to the actor? And especially if the love of their life is in Key West, so there's some fun things like that. It was a lot of fun. It was actually difficult waiting to see what MJ was going to come up with, because we sort of brainstormed, this will be the characters from book 1, and this is sort of what's going to go on, and this is for, but so we sort of had that sort of general. But we made the decision to wait so she read my book and then picked up and wrote hers. So it was almost like we were sending chapters back and forth, except it was the book. So they're novellas, so they're shorter. So it was fun. And then I never knew what I was going to get back. Because, you have the sort of general idea, but I didn't know what she was going to do and how she was going to set me up for the next book. So it was exciting. And she's so, come on, MJ O'Shea, she's ridiculously talented. So I really wasn't concerned about it, but it was a lot of fun just kind of seeing that and like getting that set up and sort of the cliffhanger on the shows. But the romances aren't cliffhangers, but we have little segments of the TV show in each book. And so you're sort of like wondering what's going to happen to these actors. So it's fun. It's fun.
I'm glad those are going to see the light of day, because those sound like a lot of fun too.
Yeah, and Reese Dante did the cover. I'll have to send it to you guys so you can see. I already have the cover. It is so beautiful. Like, she captured Flynn. She is so amazing. I just had to give her a shout out. Such a talented artist, and she really, when I told her, it's really difficult to, like, when you're working with your cover artist and you're like, okay, here's the thing. He's playing like a 16-year-old on a TV show, but he's really in his 20s. Can you capture that in a stock photo? I had to be so oddly specific about, because, I'm going to date myself, but you remember like on like 90210, the original, right? And those actors were all like in their late 20s and they were playing 15 and 16-year-olds, you know. And wasn't the one girl like 30s, in her 30s or something? You guys remember? Anyway, so it always stuck in my head. And even as I watch shows now that have like teenage characters, none of them as actors are actually teenagers. So I was like, what must that be like as an actor to play someone? But poor Reese, she did a great job. I can't wait for you guys to see that cover. It's so good. And then the second one in that book will be out in June. So the second one, will be the third one, my second one. Oh, yeah, I'm already confused. Mine is out in April. MJ's is out in May. Book 3 will be out in June. So they'll be out every month for 6 months.
Oh, fantastic.
So, month after month. So, yeah. Have I confused everybody enough? Because I'm confused. I don't even know what I have coming out next. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of books.
You've been busy.
I have been busy, and it's amazing. And when you have all this stuff, it's like feast or famine sometimes when you're a writer. Like, you spend all this time developing projects, and then all of a sudden everything seems to like get done at the same time. I mean, I had no idea that all of the Bartlett Boys stuff would be coming out when we got everything ready for Coconut Cove, and to get all that re-edited and redone, and it sort of all hit at once. So it's been sort of fun. I've been sort of going gray. This is not real. This is all from a box. But it's been a lot of fun, and I just can't wait for people to see what I've been up to, because it's been so long since I've really had a book out that I miss it. You know, I've missed having those reactions to fans and getting those messages that come in and say, when's the next book? And oh my gosh, I can't wait for whichever favorite character. And so it was really funny. I've gotten a lot of messages on the Bartlett Boys, people trying to guess, because I haven't said which cousins are going to get a book, and so everybody's trying to guess which cousins are next. And so it's been really fun, like just having that interaction again.
That's very cool. And you're actually days away from, as we're recording this, you're headed to Coastal Magic, so you'll get to get some in-person reactions. Yes,
I've actually got the first set of paperbacks, and so they just came in, and so I'm the only person who's seen what the paperback looks like for Family Ties, and so it's really fun. So the folks at Coastal Magic will have the first chance to sort of hold those in their hand, and that's always really special. And I think I've never actually had a book where I was sort of there as the first readers got the book. I don't know. It seems weird, but I'm really excited about that moment for some reason, like getting able to put the book in some hands of readers who are going to be there and who have ordered copies from me. And so I'm super excited. I'm super excited.
That's very cool. And you're going to be doing a little corresponding for us at Coastal also.
I am. I can't wait. So last year, God, has it been? It's almost a year ago now. Wow. Last March, when I was in Paris at the salon, I did some video for you guys, and I guess your viewers seem to like it. So I'm going to try again for you and do some from Coastal Magic in Daytona Beach. It's one of my favorite events of the year, and I can't wait for you guys to be able to sort of experience it. And maybe some readers will decide they're tired of the cold and want to come down to Florida, Daytona Beach in February. It's going to be in the 80s, so it'll be, don't know how we're going to manage. We'll see what we can do.
Well, you've been working extra super hard. I definitely think you deserve some fun in the sun.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we always do have fun at this event in particular. Like, it's always that, you get to go and just have a good time with readers, and there's so many people that, it's a small event, but there's just so many people that we've known and have gotten to see. So yeah, it's going to be nice to have that few days. And I always get rejuvenated by being around readers and other authors. Like, you always come away like bubbling over with ideas. And so maybe I'll actually get my edits done. So that might be nice if I could finish the edits on Kale's book on Growing Pains, so that I can actually, my editor is going to kind of have words with me if I don't get the edits done soon. But minor details. It'll happen.
Okay. Okay, well, Poppy, thank you so much for stopping by and talking to us.
You're welcome.
It's been so great to hear about all these projects.
Thanks. I'm really excited.
Fantastic. We'll link up to all of your social and all the books in the show notes.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you once again to Poppy for dropping by the show and telling us about everything that she's got going on. Look forward to everything that she's got coming up in 2018.
Absolutely. Going to be lots of stuff. I'm particularly interested in Coconut Grove.
Yeah.
That sounded a lot of fun. It reminded me, there was some TV show on the CW back in the day that was about the shooting of that TV show. Can't remember the name of it anymore, but that's what it reminded me of.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Hopefully you do too, because since we're not going to tell you what it is.
Anywho, I think that'll do it for this week's episode. We hope you will join us next week for episode 126. Poppy will hopefully stop by. She's currently at this very, very moment at the Coastal Magic Convention in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
She'll have a little behind-the-scenes looky-loo at what was going on down there in the sunshine. Also next week, Brandolyn is going to be back, and she's got some really great book recommendations.
Yeah, we're going to be talking all about Rick Riordan. And the
cool.
And the many LGBT characters that he has peppered throughout his young adult series.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So guys, remember, no matter where life takes you, the journey will always be sweeter when you have a book. Until next time, guys, keep turning those pages and keep reading.
For detailed show notes and the complete episode backlist, go to biggayfictionpodcast.com. New episodes are available every Monday on all major podcast distributors and YouTube. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.